What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 21 of Into the Necrosphere. My name is Jackie Smith, your host, as always. And anybody who knows me will know that I very, very rarely would describe anyone or anything as inspiring. But I can think of no more fitting description for somebody than for today's guest. I am referring to Pawel Marzec, who is the vocalist and founding member of Blaze of Perdition out of Poland. Anybody who knows anything about this band's history knows that Pawel has absolutely been through hell and back. And in many ways, I think that the Harrowing of Hearts, Blaze of Perdition's new record, which has just been put out on Metal Blade, is a victory both for him as well as it is for the band. And we go into that in a lot of detail on this conversation, as well as talking about his views on the Polish black metal scene, the writing and recording process for the new record, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So stick around for that. Before we get to that, however, just taking care of the usual biznatch. Remember that you can get this podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and pretty much any decent streaming platform of repute. So wherever you are watching or listening to this on, please subscribe, comment, like, share. Help the word get out, because the more subscribers I have, the easier it is for me to get guests that you would want me to, or that you would want to hear me talk to. You can also follow Into the Necrosphere on social media. Just look me up on @Into the Necrosphere on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, coming up after my conversation with Pawel, I am going to be talking about the new Svart Crown album. Svart Crown are a black and death metal band out of France. They've just put out a new album on Century Media called Wolves Among the Ashes, which, to be fair, or to be blunt, is meeting some fairly mixed response online. If you want to hear what I think about it, stay tuned. But before that, please welcome to the show Pawel Marzec of Blaze of Perdition. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. And I have heard the advanced copy of the Harrowing of the Hearts. So first and foremost, as somebody who's been a fan from, towards the Blaze of Perdition to now, it's great to hear how you guys have come, how you guys have progressed and how you guys have developed. And I feel like this album, more so than any of the previous records that you guys have done, seems to be sort of landing on very fertile ground for the band, and I don't know whether that's Metal Blade that's done a great job of hyping it up, whether it was the advanced singles that have people excited, but there seems to be a real kind of buzz and a sense of anticipation about this album. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I when we released Transmutation of Sins, I checked some comments, some people's reactions. I usually don't really follow that much, feedback, but I was curious because this song especially is different than to what we used to do in the past. So, well, I don't really know how to answer it, but what was the question actually? Because
no, what I was getting at was, is it fair to say, would you kind of agree, I guess, that there's a lot more hype and buzz and momentum around this record, I think, than anything else that you guys have done?
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's, you mentioned Metal Blade. Perhaps it is due to Metal Blade's promotion, because it's a huge step up for us.
Yeah,
Agonia was pretty good label, but Metal Blade is huge. It's totally mainstream label with huge promotion. So it's their work probably that brought this attention to us. But I think that also the sole fact that we swapped a pretty underground label to a big mainstream label had people interested and curious, probably, because people tend to suddenly think that that the band will start to I don't know, sound more friendly, more I don't know how to, more soft. And actually our first song was that kind of soft. It's this punkish vibe, this whole goth rock feel to it. So maybe this caused some buzz. Some I saw some disappointed voices, but that's how it is. It's not that Metal Blade forced us to do anything. It was our choice to go this way. We started writing this album before the deal was sealed, so didn't have any impact on the music, and it just came naturally for us.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
And how did that Metal Blade deal come about? Because I mean, were you guys actively shopping around for another deal after the last album, or did they approach you?
Well, our deal with Agonia was finished. We had a deal for 2 albums, and we were looking for I don't know, maybe new deal with Agonia because they were interested, or to find another deal. There was another pretty good label interested in us as well. I won't mention them, just to not make any fuss about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Metal Blade that approached us. They sent us an email that they are interested in the band. They asked if our deal is still active or over and all that stuff. Basically, they wanted to know what's in the band, what happens in the band, and that they are interested in the band. And if the deal is still happening with Agonia, they told us that they might be also interested in the future. But luckily the deal with Agonia was finished, and they just happened to show in the right time. And then that's how it happened, because their offer was the best. It we didn't really have to think too much about it. It was just like, we just take it because it's obviously a step up for us, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, that must have come as a massive surprise to you guys. I mean, Metal Blade is maybe I'd say of independent metal labels, you could argue they're maybe in the top 3 at the very least. So for them to approach you guys who really have your roots very firmly entrenched in the underground, how much of a shock was it to get that email or to get that approach?
Yeah, it was a total shock. I just opened my eyes still in my bed. I just took my phone, just what I usually do when I wake up, check my mails, and I see an offer from Metal Blade, and I'm like, wow, that's fucking something. And
yeah.
Especially that, as I said, we were already looking for a label, so it was just in the right time. That it's like a fate, I just instantly contacted the band's leader, kind of our guitarist, told him about it, and we obviously got all excited. We answered to the mail, and that's how it started. We started to make this deal happen.
And did he think you were bullshitting at first, or did he believe you from the start?
Could you repeat?
I say when you emailed your guitarist, did he think you were bullshitting at first, or did he believe you from the start?
Well, I called him via phone, because it was just too important to mail him or something. Well, he was shocked, but just as shocked as I was, It's not that he didn't believe me, but he stopped for a while and said something like, "Wow, man, that's not something I expected today,"
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts exactly. That's not something I expected after opening my eyes. Just a regular day.
Yeah. So, and so how has, I guess, the build up to this record then differed from any of the stuff that you guys have done before, or certainly the 2 records that you did for Agonia? What's the difference in terms of, I guess, attention from the label and the level of support that you get from the label? Because obviously, you're talking about 2 places that are significantly different in size and in resources. So what's in terms of how you've experienced it as an artist, what is the difference?
Well, it's hard to say, because the recording process, this the whole technical kind of things hasn't changed much. We have this our way of doing stuff that we feel comfortable with, and we actually recorded the album the same way. Not exactly the same way we used to do, but almost the same way. So no big changes in terms of this creation process. In regard of the label, label just happened, just showed up, and I don't really know how to answer it because you kind of you brought me to the wall here. I just don't know how to explain this because I didn't feel any change in terms of this creative process.
I imagine you've done a lot more interviews, though.
Oh yeah. if that's what you're asking,
yeah.
The promo and all the stuff.
Yeah, the PR, the marketing, all that sort of thing.
That's entirely different beast. I'm just answering to interviews almost every day, so it's a lot of shit to do. And that's the huge change. Yeah, but a minute ago I was talking about this process of writing an album. That's what didn't change that much. But yeah, this promo is entirely different. This whole attention that was brought to us is almost overwhelming to me because I'm not used to it. We as said, we came from the underground. It's a big deal for us to be on such a label, so we had to get used to it all, get the grasp of it, and maybe in a year or two I might feel more comfortable with all this buzz around us, because as I said, it's just new and it's just fresh and whole different thing for me as an artist, as a vocalist.
Yeah. In terms of the writing process, so when I heard the first single, the first thing I thought was Fields of the Nephilim. It was the first band that came to mind, and then I saw that you guys did a cover of a Fields of the Nephilim song on the album. So it kind of all made sense, and I really enjoy this direction that the record has taken. But obviously, if you think about what the first record sounded like, and the sophomore album as well, I would say if one were to look at it as an outsider, you would think that I guess opening up those influences or being, I guess, more freewheeling, one could say, with those influences, the kind of new wave goth punk vibe. Did you guys feel like that was a risk at any point? Was it ever anything that sort of, I guess, entered your consciousness as you were creating the record, or was it just something that you got to the end of the 6 songs that you wrote and it was like, well, that this is it just sort of manifested itself now?
Well, we did realize that this change of things might have some divisive impact on people, their reception, and all that stuff. But we have recorded before this album. We have recorded 4 albums. It's a lot of music for a band like us. In 10 years, we managed to record 4 albums, 4 actually pretty different albums, but all them rooted very, very much in the black metal. So it was that where after Conscious Darkness, we just thought that maybe it's time to shake things up a bit. It's hard it would be very hard to release, let's say, a copy of Conscious Darkness, similar album in similar style, and making it just as good. It would be, I think it would be impossible, at least in that moment in time, for us. So we wanted to do things differently, because we wanted to make a change in expression, make a change in a way we do things, because it allows us to take these new influences and make something new for us with them. Because when when you just record the same album over and over, it might be good, it might be a little worse, but it tends to be, I don't know, it just makes you tired as an artist. You start to feel kinda I don't think I have a word in English for that, but you just lose interest in your own art when you record the same thing over and over. So we decided that no, we have to try to look for something else, as long as we have ideas for that. And that's why this album is a little bit different. But I still think that it's a natural progression. I don't think it's a total shock that we changed genres completely. I think that when you listen to Detachment Brings Serenity, the last song of Conscious Darkness, then you start listening to the Harrowing of Hearts, I think it comes naturally from one to another. It's not a shock, it's not a sudden change of styles to me. So that's how it came to be. I think that this is my opinion, at least, because maybe some other guy from the band might have a different perspective on it, but that's what I think, at least.
I would say that you're correct on that. So this morning I listened in succession to Near Death Revelations, Conscious Darkness, and then the new record, and I feel like the DNA of the band is very much black metal. You just kind of have all these sort of mutations going on around that. Mm-hmm. But I think, but none of it, none of it sounds contrived to me. It doesn't sound like you guys decided to sort of, make this big swerve from like Metallica brought out Master of Puppets, and then a couple of albums later they brought out Load. I mean, it's nothing like that. And I think for anybody that hasn't heard the album yet, I can most certainly say from my own ears, I think the Fields of the Nephilim influence, or that Gothic influence, I think it suits you guys perfectly. I feel like there was already hints of that on Conscious Darkness anyway. Now it's just it feels like you guys were a lot more confident about it this time around than maybe you were on that record.
Yes. I actually mentioned it in the interviews in Conscious Darkness era. That we might take these goth rock inspirations and expand on them in the future. So that's not a surprise at all that we actually did it. And it was funny to me that, as I mentioned before, that some people were kind of shocked with Transmutation of Sins and the way it sounds. And I was actually talking about this with our sound guy, the guy who recorded and mixed the album, and he said something like this. He said that I don't know why the fuck those people are so surprised after hearing Conscious Darkness. He actually knows those two albums probably better than we do, because he had to mix them and polish them. And this is the guy who knows this music and had to deal with it, and probably already hates it, as probably all sound engineers do after they finish with the album. So for us it was a totally natural progression. Nothing was forced, nothing was calculated, and this Fields of the Nephilim vibe, as you said, was present on the Conscious Darkness. Here we just wanted to make it shine more in the spotlight, to bring it to the spotlight, and just put this black metal roots a little bit in the background, and make this goth rock thing more apparent, more visible for listener.
Yeah, that's kind of the analogy of a tree comes to mind. Just because the tree grows doesn't mean the roots have gone away.
Yeah, that's I think good analogy.
How collaborative are you guys in the studio when it comes to writing music? Because I'm interested in the influence that the new guitarist and the new drummer had as well on the writing. Do you guys do a lot of your writing in studio, or do you tend to sort of bring pieces to the studio with you? How does that writing process work?
Well, guys actually write at home. We don't write songs at the studio. We are not that huge band to spend weeks in the studio and to write material there. So yeah, we write at home. Guys meet in the rehearsal room and forge something out of those ideas, make these compositions, and later all the, I don't know, arrangements, all additions, details. We do it partially via internet, because we live in 3 different cities, so it's hard to meet very often, because our drummer lives in different city and the new guitarist in a different city, and 3 of us live in Lublin, so it's hard to meet very often. So we have to work through with the internet, and we send the ideas to each other and share those ideas. Everyone adds something to the whole, offers his ideas, his new I don't know, riffs. Sometimes it's a riff, sometimes it's just an arrangement, some detail. That's how it all comes to comes, I don't know, comes together later when guys actually meet in the rehearsal room, and then they forge something more consistent, more meaningful.
Yeah. So I guess you're talking about ideas there. So one idea that I was extremely curious about, I think this was in the liner notes of the bio that Metal Blade put on their website. This line with regards to the new record. So the quote here is, "It's related to and partially based on the Christian concept of the harrowing of hell, which is Christ's descent into hell. Heart serves here as a symbolical hell, a source of our deepest and darkest desires, forbidden thoughts, fears, etc. Thus, the harrowing of hearts puts us in Christ's shoes on a metaphorical journey into one's soul to face and come to terms with whatever it holds, very close to the Jungian concept of shadow integration mentioned here and there on our previous album." Can you expand on that a little?
Oh wow! I actually expanded in these notes.
Yeah.
It's first of all, it's pretty tricky for me to explain it, because my English might be a little too limited to talk about such complex topics. But yeah, I use this concept of Christ going to hell between the time of his death and crucifixion, as you said, as a metaphor of diving into inner self and discovering one's soul, whatever holds, whatever our mind holds. It's it's very metaphorical, but it has also this kind of, I don't know, practical meaning to me. This band and writing lyrics for this band, expressing them, is something like, I don't know, a therapy of sorts, a way to get myself get to know myself better. So that's why I use this Jungian concept of actually discovering oneself as some sort of a core of my own thoughts, because I actually don't put many Jungian thoughts directly into my lyrics. There are some nods to his philosophy, but most of them are actually mine thoughts, mine own reflections, my experiences. But I use his works as some kind of, I don't know, he was a great psychologist, a great thinker. So many of his thoughts just work better than my would do. I tend to refer to his quotes, to his ideas, because he just explains what I would like to explain, but does it much better than I do. And I just make this inspiration. I transform this inspiration into my words, and that's how they come out in the form of lyrics. I don't know if it's that even clear what I'm talking about.
No, it absolutely is. My first thought when I read that was that you were referring, or that at the very least, not necessarily directly referring, but that you could draw a parallel between that metaphor and your own experience, which was the accident in 2013.
Yes. This accident, as we said, was a breakthrough. It was a very important thing in my life. Not very pleasant, obviously, but very important, and something that changed my life forever, actually. So yeah, this is where I started to take this band even more seriously, even more personally. And Jung actually, his thoughts allowed me to grasp my own thoughts better, because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a scientist, so I wouldn't put so many thoughts in such brilliant way as he did. And then when I read some of his works, it allowed me to grasp my own thoughts and kind of connect them with his philosophy and express it later as lyrics, as the concept of the album, of 2 albums, even 3 albums.
So for anybody that doesn't know, or have only discovered you guys recently, can you just very quickly explain what the accident was? And I know, obviously, it left you in a coma. How long did you remain in that coma for until you woke up?
It was on the road. We played a show in Krakow, and then we went to Austria. I don't know into which city. I don't remember, but doesn't matter. It was a show in Austria, and we had an accident in the morning on the road. We just flipped over a car and all this blah blah blah, all that stuff, because our driver fell asleep. We were sleeping as well, so we couldn't really control it. It was actually kind of our fault because we didn't make him rest enough before this trip. First we traveled to Krakow, then we had to travel to Austria, and he just kind of forced this travel. He said that he doesn't need any rest. It all will be good, and we were just dumb enough to trust him, and we just got into the car and took off, and that's how we ended up, sadly. And that's basically it. And what was after? I was in coma. I don't know how long exactly. It was a couple of weeks, I think, week or 2, or something like that. And then I woke up in Austria, because I spent like a month there, because they put me together there, obviously.
Yeah. And
later they transported me to Poland, where I continued my treatment. I spent my many months. I don't know. It was like half of a year together in 3 hospitals. So yeah, it was a ride, not a very pleasant, but that's how it happened. That's what had to be done, actually, to bring me back to life, and to actually make me active in any way.
Yeah. Was there any point during that period where you were rehabbing, after you'd come out of the coma, where you thought that Perdition was over, or that you were never going to be able to make music again?
I know that the guys had such thoughts because they didn't know what will happen to me. When I was still in coma, I might only assume that they weren't too hopeful about what might happen with the band. They were probably in shock and all this stuff. But after I woke up, I started my treatment. I actually never thought that I might just finish with it. I'd say that this return to band, return to being active as a vocalist was something that actually made me actually go through all this without I don't know, losing sanity in the process. It was something that kept me going.
Did the coma, did the accident, did that affect your physical vocal performance in any way? Like when you first started singing again, could you feel the effects of that?
Actually, not at all. Actually, no. Well, maybe a little. It was at first a little more, exhausting to, because I some of the muscles in my body are not active, fully active. So I had to learn to breathe more with this new condition. But it doesn't affect my voice. It doesn't affect the way I actually perform. Actually, I'd say I'm better than I used to be before the accident. Maybe it's not the accident that made me better, obviously, but I just focused more on myself. I just said that no way it's going to stop me. Not a chance. So, and I trained. I had to do some breathing exercises to learn to breathe a little bit differently than I used to breathe when I was a healthy man. But nothing really groundbreaking. Nothing that's entirely changed my way of recording stuff.
Yeah. And so nowadays, kind of physically, do you still feel many after effects of the accident?
Oh well, I'm completely paralyzed halfway down. It's like you say that in English, right? I'm not sure. My bottom half is completely paralyzed.
Yeah, so from the waist down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I wanted to actually say. From the waist down. So it's something that you had to deal with on a daily basis. That's not something too pleasant, too great. And back pains are sometimes insane, but that's not something I can change because this pain is sometimes so fucking terrible that any painkillers they don't work.
Yeah.
So I just have to live with it. But even you can even get used to pain actually with time. So
Yeah.
that's not something that you just, it's not that I just lie in my bed and do nothing. No, I have to live. Actually, I have to do things. I have to continue this ordeal of being alive. so yeah, I although as I said, there are some things that make life harder. I don't allow them to break me.
Yeah. And you have your own business as well, contamination design.
Yes, I do a lot of graphic design work for many labels and bands.
Yeah, which I mean, I looked at some of your stuff earlier. I mean, it's awesome work, but it was interesting when you said earlier about that you don't want to be in a situation where the art no longer challenges you. I really do feel like the Blaze of Perdition, in terms of, I guess, visually how the album covers, everything that the band does seems to be very, there's like an artistic element to it that I think is probably a lot more pronounced than a lot of other bands in the scene. And that's not, music is art, period. But I think you know what I mean. There's a far more kind of coherent artistic vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we do it from the beginning. We always wanted to these visual aspects to be complementary to the music.
Yeah.
We always want them to connect with each other. It's not that we just write some music, drop some random words to it, and just paint some random artwork and send it to a label. No, it all has to be coherent, and it has to be conceptualized. It has to make sense. Of course, music kind of comes out from the guys. I don't write music.
Yeah.
I write lyrics, arrange vocals, but music is what makes me inspired. When they send me some rehearsals or some first versions of the songs, I listen to them and I just analyze them. What I might do here, or what I might sing here, and all that stuff. So it's kind of I'm looking for a good word here. It's a symbiosis. Oh, that's the word. It's a symbiosis between visual aspect, the sound, and the lyrics. This trinity of I don't know. These three aspects of our music have to be coherent, have to work together to make this in my opinion appealing, in I don't know, artistically valuable, because I hate when bands just don't care about how they present their own art. There are many bands who just write some stuff. They just take whatever some designer throws at them, and then they just release it. No, it doesn't work this way in Blaze of Perdition. It's when I want this band to be a reflection of me in some way, and I want to present it the best way I can at the moment. Because of course it changes from time to time. Sometimes I want to do things this way, sometimes I wanted to do it this other way, but it always has to be I don't know, compatible with my mindset at this current time.
Yeah. I mean, and Blaze of Perdition stands shoulder to shoulder with bands like Mugwa, Furia, obviously Behemoth, a ton of really, really awesome black metal bands. And I would probably say, I think you could argue, I don't think there's another scene, or there's another black metal scene, at least regionally, that seems to be as fertile as Poland is right now. What do you think that is? Why is so much, and you've probably been asked this tons of times before, but why is so much great black metal coming out of Poland, especially at the moment? what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is the question that I was actually asked a couple of minutes before we started talking.
Yeah.
I had another interview, and a guy asked about it, and I told him that I don't actually know. I have to tell you the same thing. I don't know what actually makes this Polish soil so fertile. Some say that it's this Catholic church thing. It may be it, but I wouldn't say it's just that. Maybe there's something in the water there in Poland, and that's it. But yeah, it's very hard to answer to it. But I think that Icelandic scene is just as fertile these days, because there are so many bands coming from such a small country that I'd say that not only Poland is that fertile, but yeah, in this part of the world, yeah, I think we have the highest amount of bands just flooding the scene.
And there seems to, I would say there's generally a Polish artistic renaissance going on at the moment. And the world wouldn't necessarily notice it, because a lot of it is, from fringe scenes like black metal and tattooing, even graphic design. But there really seems to be sort of just this burst of creativity that's come out of the country. A significant chunk of some of the best tattoo artists in the world, like as I just kind of mentioned a few seconds ago, they all come from Poland as well. Is the artistic community in Poland close knit? If you think of the black metal scene, for example, is there sort of are the bands close? Do they play together, or is there a lot of competition and a lot of kind of the politicking that you would find in other countries in the black metal scene?
Well, I'd say it's both. Actually, there are bands that support other bands, and there are bands that hate other bands. There's what people are. It's the scene is a reflection of the mentality of the people in it. So Polish mentality, there's, I think, a lot of competitive way of thinking. There's a lot of jealousy as well. So yeah, there's a lot of shit being thrown at each other, here. But there's also a lot of respect between bands as well. So it just differs from band to band. There are bands who have close ties with other bands. We have, I don't know, for instance, pretty close ties with more the Stigmata. We played together so many times I can't really remember. Other bands have close ties with other names, and that's that. But there is some sort of competitive things here as well. Yeah, because I think that's Polish thing, Polish kind of personality. We Polish people have this I don't even have a word for that, but we are very, I don't know, in a way territorial. We don't, as people, as a nation, we don't really like people messing around close to us, messing around with our stuff. So it kind of translates to people's mentality in the scene. So yeah, there is some competitive shit and some toxic shit as well between some bands, but that's how it is. That's it. I don't really think about it too much. I just do my job, and that's it.
But then I would also, as you were saying that, I'm thinking of the Norwegian scene back in the early '90s, and even the Tampa Bay death metal scene, back in the sort of late '80s, early '90s. I feel like competition in the scene, when it comes to what it means for fans, isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it pushes bands to try and outdo each other all the time, and as long as they're trying to outdo each other on a musical level, and not church burning and murder, you're onto a pretty good thing.
Yeah. It's actually until you. No, that's not what I want to say. Actually, you answered to your own question in a way.
Yeah.
So I just can well, what I can say, just agree to that this healthy kind of competition brings more artistic fluidity, more artistic I don't know, fertility as well.
Mm.
But as I said, there's always this kind of toxic kind of competitivity, and you just have to, I don't know, you just have to deal with both of them. That's a hard topic for me.
Yeah. Well,
Actually,
I say to people when it comes to competition or it comes to anything, I live by one saying: control the controllable. As long as you do that, everything else will take care of itself. So if you're a band and you're in a scene like the Polish scene where there's just one great band after the other coming out, do the best job that you can, make sure that you record the best record you can, and people will either like it or they won't. And generally speaking, I think if you focus on just that, I think you'll always be in a good place.
yeah, that you said, that's exactly what I wanted to say, but my English wasn't good enough to actually express it. But yeah, that's actually my response to that. Just focus on yourself, do your job, do your thing, and let everything else just fall into place, not naturally.
And I'm curious, in Poland, when you guys were coming up, or even maybe when you were younger and you were looking at some of the Polish bands and some of the Polish talent, who were kind of the pioneers and the trailblazers of the scene? Who were the black metal bands that a band like Blaze of Perdition looked up to in Poland?
In Poland, oh, actually, I don't think we looked up to Polish bands at all. We were at the beginnings. We were inspired by Norwegian and Swedish scene mostly, and French scene. Funeral Mist, Tain, Omega. Basically, this renaissance of black metal in of the near the new century, because it started happening at the turn of centuries, somewhere around that. So we were inspired by those bands, but not by Polish bands at all. I'd say we Polish, actually Polish, old Polish black metal bands. What are those Polish black metal bands, old Polish black metal bands that could actually influence us? I can only mention Thunderbolt. Maybe Thunderbolt is awesome. Too bad it's not active anymore. But yeah, this is the band that might had some influence on our during our beginnings. But as I said, it was mostly Nordic and French scene that made us subconsciously do what we do.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember, obviously most people of my generation listened to Vader, and then we heard the first Behemoth records. I got into Graveland, but there was not a huge amount of Polish bands coming out, and then all of a sudden there was this massive explosion. And first it was a bunch of death metal bands that all tried to sound like Vader. None of them were very good. And then all of a sudden you start noticing, like, almost every second black metal band that I'm hearing that's new that I like is Polish. I remember sitting listening to a bunch of stuff, and me and my friend kept looking up where the bands were from. Like every other band is like, surprise, surprise, they're also from Poland. So, and this is why I asked you, who do you feel kind of paved the way, because it feels like it was just this massive explosion suddenly of just crazy amounts of talent, and it doesn't seem to have stopped. Bands like Above Aurora that are relatively new are just, fantastic. They're making debut albums that are running circles around bands like, and I say this with all due respect, but I mean, bands like Watain and established bands in the scene cannot hold a candle to what these guys are doing.
Well, I don't really know what else to add, but I think that we should mention that I think that Mgła's success was kind of a breakthrough for Polish scene. Not maybe not in terms of creativity, because as you said that it was there. It's been there since forever actually, but this kind of success that they achieved maybe brought people's attention to Polish bands and actually made people care about those bands, the bands that otherwise might not get such attention. They could just get lost in among tons of other bands. So I think that maybe it's this band's success that brought so much attention to Polish scene in general, but I don't know for sure. I can just guess because as we mentioned before, we just do our thing. We just don't analyze everything. In our scene, we just do our stuff and focus on that, and let's hope we keep doing it.
Well, dude, I am pretty sure you're going to, and I think it brings the interview full circle quite nicely, because I think as far as success is concerned, I really genuinely believe that Harrowing of Hearts is going to be very successful for you guys. I mean, I've been around long enough to know that when Metal Blade throws the amount of weight behind a band that they've done with you guys, they believe there's something there, and I happen to agree with them. I've thought that ever since Towards the Blaze of Perdition. So I think the only thing to add is from my side, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. You're an inspirational guy, and if I'm ever in Poland at some point, I hope I bump into you.
Oh, let's just meet if we can.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
And,
brother.
and sorry for my broken English, but
No.
when you have tons of thoughts in Polish in mind and you have to translate it on the fly, I tend to forget words and I stutter, but I hope I manage to at least somehow to at least somehow put some I don't know. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. I can't find the word and I start to stutter. But I
don't worry, man. You
understand what I wanted to say.
I do. You were awesome. I spoke to Joel McIver, the writer, a couple of episodes ago, and I was telling him the story of when I interviewed Gol, and it was the interview that I was most prepared for and that I was probably most excited about, and it was done in 10 minutes. It's literally like I didn't interview him for the podcast. I interviewed him for a website that I was writing for at the time, but it was just like, I must have caught him on a bad day. He just wasn't very talkative. And I don't know whether, I think his English has improved, but I don't think his English at the time was very good, because every single answer was like, yes, no, yes. It's like, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is fucking terrible. So, whenever I said to Joel, whenever I interview anybody, especially somebody that I've never met before, I kind of see it like you're going over the mountain, and you have that point where you kind of can sense that the person you're talking to is relaxing and they're letting their guard down and they're going to let their personality come out, and then the interview is going to be great. And I knew that about 5 minutes into ours. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you too. I just want to, I try to be, I don't know, natural. I'm not the guy who just poses to be someone else. Besides, I think that's being honest it's what actually the most important thing in art, in my opinion. So without being too pretentious, but I just live by this I don't know, rule that we just have to be kind of true to ourselves and to people we talk to, and that's the only thing we can actually coexist and
I
And
completely agree. I think whether it's performance, whether it's whether it's painting, whether it's even tattooing, I think the greatest art is where you take your personality and you just turn the volume way up on it.
yes, I'm pretty much, unable to be not be honest. I'm the kind of guy that when life sometimes forces you to maybe lie or maybe not tell the whole truth. Life is what it is. I always feel totally, I don't know, devastated when I just can't be 100% honest with people. I just sometimes I'm even too honest, and it's not always for the good
Yeah.
with people, because not all people actually like being honest with them.
No.
Especially when it comes to criticism and all this stuff. But that's the rule that I try to live by, and let's hope I continue to do it.
Awesome. Well, dude, again, like I said, thank you so much for your time. All the best, best of luck with this record. And as I said, I'm sure it's going to do very well.
Let's hope it does, and all the best to you as well. And
All right,
thank you
brother.
for this talk, because it was, first of all, it was very long and probably the most interesting one so far. So it
Awesome.
was good.
Well, no, well, like I said, I do feel for you guys, because I remember being at press days, and you talk to some guys and they're like, I've done 250 interviews this week. Like I always try and keep them away from just the usual bullshit. I don't want the show to sound like a typical metal interview show. I would love it for it to be that as many people that don't listen to this music whatsoever can tune in and and find it enjoyable. As what people that do listen to this music could have, because I like talking to people that are interesting and that have interesting things to say, because I think there's so many interesting personalities in metal, so many different people from so many different backgrounds. I think it's one of the most diverse and one of the most fascinating genres of music around, whether you like the music or not.
Yeah, I think I can just agree. I don't know if I agree that I'm a super interesting person. It's not for me. It's not for me to tell, actually. But if you say so, then thank you.
Awesome, cool. All right, dude. Take care of yourself.
Okay, take care.
All the best. Bye bye. thank you so much to Pawel for coming on the show. He and I spoke a little afterwards, and hopefully I'm going to have him back in the next couple of months. Like I said at the top of the show, such an inspiring guy. And I really think that the Harrowing of Hearts is a victory for him on a personal level as much as it is for the band. I think one needs to take into context, Blaze of Perdition is, one of the most cult underground Polish black metal bands around. And they've managed to get themselves onto arguably one of the top three metal labels in the world through absolutely no compromise, no softening of their sound. I think their roots will always remain entrenched in the Polish black metal underground. So they've really kind of earned this by hard work, resilience, and just by having an abundance of talent. So well done to them, and do check out that record. It's called The Harrowing of Hearts, as I've said. It is out now on Metal Blade. It came out on February the 14th, so it's about 3-4 days in the rear view by the time that you listen to this, and it is well worth checking out. Another album that you might want to give a listen to at some point, the new Svart Crown. It's called Wolves Among the Ashes. It has just come out on Century Media. It is Svart Crown's fifth record and the follow-up to 2017's Ab Reaction, which I really enjoyed. These guys are from Nice in France. They've been around for about 15 years or so. And this album, like I said, has been getting some mixed reactions, which initially you'd kind of wonder where it's coming from. The album opens with a clip by all-round nutbag and cult leader Jim Jones, where he says, "The world suffers violence and the violent will take it by force." I do think he sounds a little bit like Mike Tyson, but that's a different matter. But it does set the scene for the opening song, and that song doesn't stray a million miles from the band's tried and true blackened death metal blueprint. It's around about the third track, a song called The Art of Obedience, where things kind of start to take a pretty substantial swerve. They slow things down a lot. They introduce clean vocals. There's a lot more groove. There are a lot more atmospheric breaks. And, I think some of this could be down to changes in the band's lineup. I know they've mixed things up quite a bit in the run-up to this record. I think they have a new drummer. And as far as I know, it's either a new drummer or a new bassist. I can't remember off the top of my head. But regardless, they've mixed things up a little bit, and I think it could also be down to the fact that they've paid a lot of attention to what's been going on in death metal and extreme music generally over the past couple of years. Because there's a couple of moments on this album where I can hear a really strong hint at the last Whitechapel record, and to a lesser extent, maybe even the last Cattle Decapitation. The trouble here, in my opinion, is that as much as Svart Crown are adding new elements to their sound, it's new for them. It's not new for the rest of us. So anybody that has a passing interest in this style of music will have heard all of this before. None of it is in any way innovative. And Svart Crown's execution is just that kind of half step below what I would consider to be genre leaders. So again, Whitechapel or Cattle Decapitation. It's ironic, therefore, that my favorite track, and the one that I'm going to play in just a few seconds, is a song called Down to Nowhere. It's basically bordering on being a ballad. It doesn't sound like the same band at all. It kind of sounds like Madrugada if they decided to do something a little bit heavier. It's dark, it's eerie. It's something that as a producer, I might have told them you might want to consider leaving off the album, but I'm glad they included it because I absolutely love it. And if nothing else, it's a track that you might want to queue up on Tidal or Qobuz or Spotify or wherever you listen to your music from. So here it is. This is Svart Crown with Down to Nowhere.
Strong.
That was Down to Nowhere by Svart Crown off the album Wolves Among the Ashes. I think if I didn't make it clear in the review earlier, I would say it's definitely not worth, or it's definitely not a waste of 40 minutes to listen to this album. Are you going to listen to it again after the first or second spin through? I don't know. I don't think I will, but I will be sticking Down to Nowhere on a playlist somewhere, and that's a song I'll return to. So, that's an indication of where the band might end up going. As much as it is a massive departure from their earlier stuff. I don't know. I wouldn't be completely annoyed by it. But anyway, that is the only new release I'm going to talk about this week because there's not really been anything else that's come out of note. I don't want to really. I know I've done it in the past, but I don't really want to talk about singles so much anymore. Because then you don't have anything to talk about really when the album comes out. And there are a bunch of really, really cool singles that have come out so far this year. I mean, the New Testament single sounds fucking insane. And I really, really can't wait for that. On the other hand, the new Ishon single, Nort, is one of the worst songs I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I've not been a fan of Ishon's solo records. I liked the second one. I think it was called Angel or something. That was all right. But, this new one literally sounds like black metal ska. It is fucking unlistenable. But anyway, since I'm not going to be talking about other records this week, here is a nickel's worth of free advice. If you aren't watching it already, make sure that you start watching The Righteous Gemstones on HBO. It is absolutely magnificent. It's made by the same guys that did Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals. It stars Danny McBride, Walton Goggins, and the great John Goodman. It's a really, really dark, kind of twisted humor, and it may be that I find it funnier because I grew up around some of the Christian nutcases that the show centers around. Great show, and if you have the right sense of humor for it, it's fucking hysterical. Another thing that I wanted to mention, you guys will recall back to when I had Sonny King on the show from Primal Holocaust. There was a debate around the John Jones-Dominic Reyes fight. Now, that took place this weekend. And I have to say, I feel vindicated because I did suggest that there may be an upset there. And fucked if there was not. I know that the John Jones came away with a decision, but that literally was by the fucking thinnest of margins. I actually had the fight for Dominic. I had him winning rounds 1, 2, and 3. John Jones winning 4 and 5, but yeah, I feel vindicated after the Conor McGregor fiasco, and I hope those two guys step into the cage against each other again at some point, because I think if Dominic can make a couple of adjustments, if he can push through those last 2 rounds, then I don't fancy John's chances. But then again, in rematches, it always tends to favor the fighter that won the first fight. So who knows? We will have to see either way. What an absolutely fantastic performance by both of those guys. And speaking of fantastic performances, if you did watch the card, Valentina Shevchenko absolutely murdered the woman that she fought against. I can't remember off the top of her head what her name was, but either way, that was, in my opinion, it put the art in martial arts. Her name is Caitlin Chukagian, and I know that Mike Hill, that was on the Tomb show, mentioned that he had trained with her. And she's no joke either. She's a 13-3 fighter. So she's very, very good. Her, I think in many of the fights that I've kind of seen her in previously, her style is really smooth. It was something that on paper could potentially give Valentina some problems, but fucking hell, there was no problems to be had there. She was just absolutely exceptional. So yeah, if you've not seen that fight, or if you've not seen the card, make sure you go and check out, if nothing else, that fight, because to see Valentina, I think is a real pleasure. Anyway, that is it from me for this week. On next week's show, I'm going to be talking to Matt Wilcock, formerly of Akukaka, now with the Antichrist Imperium, Werewolves. He has also played with Belligerent Intent. But he's we've got a whole bunch that we're going to get into on that conversation, and he's a guy that I've been wanting to get on the show for a long time. I know people have been wanting me to talk to him for a while, so hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the conversation. I'm also going to talk about what I think about the new Blaze of Edition in detail. I've already kind of hinted at the fact that I do think it's a great record, but I want to give myself an opportunity to really listen to it thoroughly. So I'll discuss it in more detail next week. And then also, I have been working on finishing my top 50 black metal list of all time. So top 50 black metal bands list, I should say, of all time. Myself and my mate Andre were calibrating furiously, kind of listening through each band this weekend, debating and arguing where everybody should sit. There's been quite a few changes made since the initial draft. But anyway, I think I'm just about ready to start recording those episodes. So my plan is to do a countdown over 5 episodes. So I will shamelessly steal the format that Jamie Jaster has used for his thrash, hardcore, and death metal countdowns. And then I will drop those while I'm on holiday in March and April. As with all of these lists, there's always a bunch of people that are going to complain and cry about bands that were left out, or bands that weren't high enough, or bands that I put too high. The point of these lists is to have fun and to hopefully, maybe remind people of bands that they've stopped paying attention to for a while, or help people discover some new music. And that's really the only reason I'm putting it together. It's a hell of a lot of fun for me to do, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy listening to it as well. And speaking of which, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks once again to Pawel for coming on. We will have him on again at some point soon. But in the meantime, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for your support. From the mean streets of Surbiton on the outskirts of London, I am bidding you a fond farewell.